What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today's going to be a bit of a different video. I've seen a lot of conversation on Twitter over the last few days about franchise mode in video games. So we had Madden, who, they really marketed their franchise mode this year. They promised 3 updates. Well, after this first one, the scouting update, they said, well, we're going to cancel the last 2 because we have other games we have to work on. And that led to a big conversation on MLB The Show Twitter about their franchise mode and how they haven't received many updates, which I completely agree with. MLB The Show's franchise mode hasn't really seen many updates over the last several years. And so I just kind of wanted to put down my thoughts on how MLB The Show's franchise mode could be improved. I've put all of my ideas in this Google Doc here, and I'll be sharing the link to this document in the description of this video. But without further ado, let's get into it. Improving MLB The Show's franchise mode. So the structure of MLB itself lends itself naturally to a very deep and enjoyable franchise mode, with the minor leagues, all of the different ways to move people along the roster. There's so much depth just to the game of baseball itself that lends itself great to a franchise mode. However, in the current state, MLB The Show's franchise mode has gone some time without major updates, and the current state of the mode fails to live up to this potential. This is my proposal for ways to improve the mode in the near future. These improvements will fall into 2 categories: logic improvements and feature improvements. The first category deals with the simulation logic of the systems currently in the game, while the second deals with the addition of new features to help improve the immersiveness and the quality of life of the mode. So let's start with logic improvements. Simulation logic has needed improvement in MLB The Show franchise mode for some time now. Though attempts have been made in the past, simulation logic is still nowhere near realistic. Teams that should easily compete for a title based on roster quality will lose 100+ games, while teams that should be near the top of the draft order will make the playoffs. Upsets and Cinderella stories are a part of sports that people love, yes, but the rate at which these occur in MLB The Show feels very unrealistic. And instead of being, these once-in-a-generation things that, are, memorable moments throughout your franchise, they instead cheapen the experience, it feels like, as, I could put all this effort into building up this great team just to lose 100 games. And it feels like I basically have wasted my time. Trade logic also needs improved for some time now. MLB The Show 21 especially had terrible trade logic when it came to teams trading players. Specifically, CPU teams would make trades that made absolutely no sense. Often we would see the Tampa Bay Rays would trade Wander Franco 2 years into his great career for a bottom tier reliever. And then you would always see the Blue Jays, they would trade away their entire core of Vlad Guerrero and Bo Bichette and all of them for, middle tier prospects that never really made it to the majors. And these trades just make no sense from the CPU's perspective, and they break the immersion for the player and just ruin the feeling that the league that we're playing in is an actual simulation of the real MLB. Beyond continued improvements on the back end to simulation logic, here are some ideas on how to give players the ability to fix these problems themselves. Adding simulation sliders. MLB The Show needs more options for the players to tailor their franchise experience to their liking. These new options should be similar to how NBA 2K's My NBA mode has several options and slider sets for the player to set how they see fit. So here you can see NBA 2K's trade sliders in their My GM, which is now the My NBA mode. And you can see, this affects how teams value different types of players. And then in this picture here is the salary expectation. So this sets like the minimum rating of players that want a max contract, the maximum rating of players that want contracts, how much player potential, player durability, player fame, and such plays into their contract expectations. These and others would really help the mode. These sliders allow the player to set how CPU teams will act during simulation. There are several sets of sliders affecting trade values, contract expectations, progression, regression, salary cap, simulated game difficulty, morale and chemistry effects, draft class quality, and more. Adding these sliders will let every franchise the user plays feel different from the last. This would also give the development team important feedback on how the current default logic in the mode is received by the community. For example, if a large portion of players increase prospect progression, it could be a sign that the current prospect progression rate is a bit slow. This is just one way that this could help the development team improve the logic based on community feedback. Add franchise setup vault. On top of adding these sliders and settings to the franchise mode, A vault should be added so that players can upload their franchise setups and let other players use them. This would let community players create new, challenging experiences for each other that would help to grow the number of players playing the mode. This would also allow it so if a user finds a setup they like and want to use multiple times, they would not need to change the settings and sliders each time they start a new franchise. Award XP regardless of franchise setup. Currently, if a player changes sliders like injury or trade frequency in franchise mode, they receive reduced XP for playing the mode. Players should not be punished for playing franchise mode how they want to play it. No matter what the settings the player uses, they should be given the full XP for their gameplay. There's already a max amount of XP that players can earn from gameplay each day set, so there's no reason players should have a slower XP gain from experimenting with the new settings for the mode. Now on to feature improvements. This section will introduce several ideas for new features for franchise mode to help improve player experience and immersiveness. Historical statistics. Baseball is a game of numbers. However, there are so many historical facts and statistics currently missing from MLB The Show franchise mode. Currently, you can only view the previous award winners from the past 3 years. This should be extended so that you can view every award winner for each award currently in franchise mode. So currently, for the MVP, you can only see the previous 3 winners, and as you go further and further into a franchise, these will disappear and be replaced by other people. In NBA 2K's My NBA League history, you can go and you can scroll down for season awards, and for each of the awards, you can scroll down and view all of the previous winners for each year, as well as which team they were on when they won that award. There's also no way to currently view a comprehensive list of which awards an individual player has won. It would be cool if I could view all of the many awards Mike Trout has won throughout his career. Player awards should be added as part of the player card that would easily tell how many of each award a player has won and what years they won them in, again similar to NBA 2K's version. So here with Larry Bird in NBA 2K, you can see how many MVPs he's won. He's won 3. He's an NBA champion. He's won 4. He's been an all-star. He's been that so many times, and these are the years. This would be a great addition to MLB The Show. There should also be a way to view previous champions, including what teams played in which World Series, how many games each team won, the World Series MVP, as well as the unique logo for that year's World Series. These are awesome. Please put them in the game. MLB records need to be expanded. Currently, only the record holder is shown. This should be expanded so that we can watch players climb up the ladder towards those all-time records. Imagine checking every season to see Mike Trout climb his way up the all-time home run list. So as you can see here with the career records, you can only see, here's Barry Bonds, 762, but you don't see the rest of the people on the all-time home run list. I think these lists should be added. They could add maybe the top 10, top 50, top 100, whatever, but they should be added into the game. Team records should also be added into the game, so maybe instead of going for the MLB home record, maybe I just want, Dylan Carlson to go for the Cardinals home run record. Also add in a screen to show retired jerseys for each team and see which jerseys teams retired during the playthrough. Nobody else should wear number 24 for the Tigers after Miguel Cabrera retires. Broadcast presentation options. One of my favorite things about MLB The Show 21 is the ability to choose between either the show theme or the MLB Network theme for presentation when you're playing your franchise games. This adds an extra bit of immersion with different scoreboards and graphic styles for each theme. I would say expand this with more options, either with real broadcasters like ESPN, FS1, TBS, and others, or just make up some other generic broadcasters like Northeast Baseball broadcasters, stuff like that. Make logos, make different, designs for them, use different commentators for them. It would just add a little extra immersion to the mode. And then building off of that previous suggestion, TV contracts, as we all know, make up a huge portion of an MLB team's income. So let's add a period during the offseason where users can negotiate local and national TV contracts with these different broadcasters. This would work similarly to the current sponsorship feature in the game. Teams would receive money for each game played on the network that they have a contract with, as well as bonuses for how they perform in the game. So let's say I sign a contract as the Yankees to host 40 games on ESPN. Then I would get money for each of those 40 games, as well as, if I hit so many home runs or for each strikeout I get in the game, I get a certain bonus. That would be how I would see doing that the best way. Also, teams would be able to sign one local TV contract, so you could sign, if I'm the Rangers, I sign a deal with Fox Sports Southwest or Southwest Broadcasting Team or someone like that. and they broadcast all of my games no matter what. And then you can also sign several smaller national TV contracts to broadcast a portion of your game. So maybe I want 10 games on TBS, 5 games on ESPN, 20 games on FS1. Better teams like the Dodgers or the Red Sox would also be offered more nationally televised contracts, thus giving more revenue to them and incentivizing the lower teams to get better so that they can make more TV money and then, have more money to spend, and just that constant loop of incentivizing teams to get better. For locally televised games, only the broadcast theme for the local broadcaster would be available, but for a nationally televised game, both the local and national broadcast themes would be available, and of course these contracts would run for a certain period of time, and once those are up, you can then negotiate for new deals. Custom/historic draft classes. MLB The Show is the only major American sports video game title without custom draft classes. Other games like Madden incorporated this feature for over half a decade now. This is just a basic feature for a sports video game at this point. MLB The Show needs to get with the times and add this feature as soon as possible, along with a draft class vault so players can share their draft classes with each other. On top of allowing custom draft classes, MLB The Show should add historic draft classes. Diamond Dynasty has one of the most impressive lineups of historic and legendary players in any sport game out there right now. From players that played, all the way back in the times of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig to, Ken Griffey Jr. and Albert Pujols. I love playing with these historic players, but these historic players are not very well implemented into franchise mode. There's an option to allow these players as free agents, but a better way would be to create rookie versions of these players, some of which already exist in Diamond Dynasty. So there's already rookie versions of players like Matt Kemp and others in Diamond Dynasty right now, and use these to create historic draft classes for these players. These classes would include the players MLB The Show has the rights to and would be filled out with the auto-generated prospects already in the game. So say you're a Yankees fan that wants to make Ken Griffey Jr.'s blood boil, load in the 1987 historic draft class, draft him onto your Yankees team and throw him out there with Stanton and Judge, and pray the real Ken Griffey Jr. doesn't find out you did this. Prospect Fast Track Moments. This is a very cool feature that's already in March to October that expedites the progression of certain prospects to get them to the big leagues faster. This feature should be added to the franchise mode immediately. As you can see here, there are moments throughout the season you can pick a minor league player to fast track their progression and hopefully get them to the big leagues much sooner. Rule changes. Baseball's undergone several rule changes in recent years, from adding the player on second base during the extra innings and others. Let's dive into this and let the player craft the game to their own vision. Some examples of possible rule changes include imposing/abolishing a pitch clock, imposing/abolishing a salary cap, ban contracts of a certain length. So say I don't want any more contracts over 5 years. So I implement that rule. I can no longer sign players to contracts over 5 years after that. Any rules regarding shifts. So you can shift as much as you want. You can only shift, a certain way. All of these could be implemented. Set the number of batters a pitcher must face before being able to be taken out of the game. Expand or reduce the playoff size. Add expansion teams or ban teams from the league. And also allow for the trading of draft picks. These are just some of the many possible rule changes that could be implemented with this feature. The player would get to choose these during the offseason, and they can be implemented as many or as few as the player chooses. Custom leagues. This feature would allow the player to realign the league every offseason as well as before starting their franchise. They could realign and rename divisions and leagues as well as add or remove teams from the league. Player suspension. Players cheat in baseball, that's just a part of the game. From steroids to spider tech to trash cans, we've seen a lot of cheating scandals, and when players get caught cheating, they get suspended. In the same way, players currently in the game have a injury rating corresponding to how likely they are to get injured, add a suspension rating which shows how likely they are to do something that will get them suspended. Also add a section to the injury report which shows which players are currently suspended. Conclusion. Thank you for taking the time to listen or read through this list of proposed changes to MLB The Show franchise mode. This is not a complete list, just my list of ideas. I hope that this will encourage other MLB The Show community members to brainstorm their own ideas and share them with the rest of us, and will also encourage the development team to listen to the community on how to improve franchise mode to finally make it just as great as the other parts of this wonderful game. I'm Brandon Satterwhite with Idej Gaming. Thank you for watching.